What? This?
No,
No.
it's not a motion.
No, it's not a motion. Okay, well, give it back. All right. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Whole for May 20th. If the clerk would please call the roll.
Councilmember Wood,
Here.
Councilmember Spatafor, Councilmember Spitzley, Councilmember Washington, Councilmember Dunbar, Councilmember Hussein, Councilmember Garza, Councilmember Jackson.
If we could continue to remember Councilmember Dunbar in our thoughts, and we will mention this at the council meeting. Her mother's funeral was today, and so I'm not expecting that she will be here. She's with family right now. So with that, we will move on. We have minutes of May 9th and May 13th. Vice President Spatafor.
Madam President, I move the approval of the minutes from May 9th, 2019. It was our budget neighborhood meeting, and May 13th, 2019.
We have a motion on the minutes. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. This is an opportunity for public comment. If there is anyone from the public that would like to make a comment, this is the time to come forward. If you give us your name for the record, and then you will have 3 minutes.
Loretta Stanaway, and I am happy to be able to support the changes in the proposed fees for the remapping of the flood zone. I think that the compromise that was reached where the city will cover the costs out of the revenue from the sale of the parking ramp is a very good solution, and it was very well coordinated, I think, between the council and the administration. It served the public in a very positive way, and I'm happy to support that. I also support the changes in the fees and structure of fees for the cemeteries. I think that there's been some very thoughtful and creative changing in the way things are charged for example, the cremation urn niches at the Columbarium at Mount Hope Cemetery. I think that they will be well received by the public and they're appropriate changes. On the Scott Park Sunken Garden, I went there again this Saturday. I took several more pictures once again, and I am completely befuddled still as to how the Board of Water and Light can still continue to say that the plants that were taken from the garden, which have been largely for all appearances preserved, will be put back in the garden when 99% of the garden has already been planted and it's all new plant material. So I'm questioning how they expect to put the old material in with the new when it would result in such overcrowding if they did that. And second, if they don't do that, what are they going to do with the original plants? And then also, I have not been able to find any place where they put out a bid for the new plant material. So I'm questioning how the bid process was done and where the charges for the new plants were paid out of. Was it paid by the Board of Water and Light? Was it paid out of the $40,000 per year that they told the garden club they would have to maintain the new site once it's up and running? Lots of questions waiting for answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time? This is your opportunity. You have 3 minutes. Seeing, go ahead. Hi.
Linda Keefe. I was at the your budget meeting a week or so ago and spoke on this issue. I feel that it's very important that the city put in the budget funds to hire a sustainability energy manager. A lot of the major news outlets carried last week that we now have 415 parts per million carbon dioxide, greenhouse gas emissions, and lately that's been at a rate of about 3 parts per million per year, and it's just really escalating, and I'm very concerned about our environment. we're fortunate to live in an area where we haven't experienced extreme drought, or well, we actually did have a flood recently, well, and not too far, not very long ago. But I appreciate those on the council that are taking a lead, such as Brian Jackson and Kathy Dunbar, and perhaps others that I'm not aware of. And so I would just really, really hope that you'll consider this, because it really is our future. And so I appreciate your time, and I'm very sorry to hear about Kathy's mom's passing.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time? Anyone else? Seeing no one else, then we will move on into the agenda. First, I'd like to turn this over to the mayor. I think he has a substitute appropriation that he would like to have council consider.
Thank you, Madam
Mayor.
President. We're on the Townsend ramp, is that?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. Yes, we had provided the original resolution. I had a lot of good conversation with many at this table, all at this table, and we are asking you to consider a substitute for the original, which will remove the $500,000 that we had originally put in for paperless office. I still do believe in that, and I think it's an important effort that we're going to need to embark on, but there were many questions about the exact cost, and we didn't have that. We ballparked based on expert opinions, but we're going to do a little bit more checking on that. Instead, we're asking to cover the Red Cedar assessment with 180,000-ish. I don't remember the exact number. 181,500. Thank you, sir. With $181,500, so that we can do the remapping, which I think is tremendously important. And the city will cover that from the Townsend Ramp proceeds, so we're not using taxpayer dollars to do it. We're using Townsend Ramp proceeds. And then with the balance of that, we will put $318,500 into sidewalk repair, in addition to the dollars that we're going to put into the budget. So our substitute makes that one, I think just that one change. Is that right? Yeah, just that one change. So we will, we provide that to you for your consideration.
Before we can look at the substitute resolution, what we need to do is a reconsideration, because we did vote this out of committee. And so, Vice President Spatafor?
Madam President, I move to consider a substitute resolution on the supplemental appropriation on the funds from the sale of the Townsend ramp.
We have a motion on that. Are there any questions or concerns about the substitute? Then we'll have an opportunity to talk to the substitute. Right now, we are looking at a vote on it. Do you have a question about?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a question, but is this like discussion time for?
No, we got to first vote to reconsider, then you'll have the opportunity for the discussion.
How many votes does it require to reconsider?
Reconsider, it's 6. I'm pretty sure it's 6 votes.
And I will support a reconsideration.
And then you can talk to this and.
Sure, just because I'm willing to play friendly and everything.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion for reconsideration. All those in favor of reconsideration say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes unanimously. And now, Vice President Spatafor, you'd like to move the substitute?
Yes, Madam President, I move the substitute resolution on the supplemental appropriation for the funds from the sale of the Townsend parking ramp.
All right, now we have a motion on that. Councilmember Jackson, now it's your opportunity, and then Councilmember Washington.
Thank
And then
you.
Councilmember Spatafor.
I'm not going to support it, only because it is appropriations, even though it's at the discretion of the mayor for the most part, and they are going to great places that are represented by all of the council members, but it's still missing the environmental aspect and the sustainability aspect. So like the budget, I'm gonna propose to try to, find a position or at least something towards that direction at minimum, but preferably a position. So it's my understanding that this money could have possibly been appropriated for that, if it, amongst other priorities, so I won't support it.
Okay, I have Councilmember Washington, Vice President Spatafor, Councilmember Hussein.
Well, on behalf of the residents that I represent in the First Ward, which is the majority of the people that would have been paying this assessment, and they are the poorest of the poor in my ward, and they were incredibly concerned about the money that they were going to have to pay. I can't thank you enough for your collaboration, for your consideration, for you discussing this with me and coming up with an option. They're worried about eating. They're not real worried about environment right now. That's the bottom line. And thank you for the money in the sidewalks. It's a tremendous burden for my folks that are in wheelchairs and using walkers that have mobility issues. So I can't thank you enough.
Vice President Spatafor, and then Councilmember Hussein.
I'll echo Councilmember Washington's thanks to the mayor for coming to the table to work on some compromise on this. I do also want to point out, I agree with the mayor that looking at a way to reduce the amount of paper we keep on file is very, very important, and I appreciate the proactive nature that you took in this, and I know you're going to go at this systematically the next time around, so I have no concerns there. The resolution before us does a lot of good with one-time money, and that's really, really important. I think huge investments in public safety and the employees that serve this community, whether it's police and fire or other departments, health of our residents with the floodplain reassessment, and customer service. You've done a lot in this resolution with money that we basically found because you made a deal with the Senate that really will help improve city services to our residents, and I'm very excited to support the resolution, so thank you.
I have Councilmember Hussein, Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes, many of my comments will be redundant, but I don't care. I really don't. First and foremost, I want to thank Councilwoman Washington for being very, very responsive to, again, the needs of really what are her most economically challenged folks. And then we're still breathing fresh air, 18 months in, I think, with Mayor Shore's administration, and the fact that he was willing to sit down, listen, be responsive, take a step back, and then reallocate some of these dollars, I think, to what really were critical needs. And then with regards to the infrastructure, this is just, this administration really doubling down. In fiscal year 2018, we were funding sidewalk repairs at $140,000. So they increased that by $160,000 for fiscal year 2019 and 2020. And then when you add this additional $318,500, at least for this fiscal year, we will be funding sidewalk repair at an additional $478,500 above and beyond what we were doing back in fiscal year 2018. We know with 550 miles of sidewalk, we still have quite a ways to go, but I think this demonstrates a commitment, and I appreciate that. And then with regards to the public safety piece, just a few of the highlights: the breathing apparatuses for the fire department, the SWAC renovations for the fire department, the citywide public safety camera replacements, 2 ambulances, a fire engine, real-time crime center software. Again, I think this demonstrates real commitment to public safety, infrastructure, and then some of our most economically challenged folks. I really appreciate what you did with this. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to commend all of our council members and, of course, the mayor for working through this. The Red Cedar thing was really important to me. As you look and have people come up and talk to you about that and the mapping, I get why it had to be done, but it really bothered me that we were going to assess folks in Councilmember Washington's ward and my ward, by reference of being at large, that really couldn't afford it. So I really appreciate, and this is how government is supposed to work. Leadership showed leadership. You guys got together and you resolved it, and I couldn't be happier. I think that I don't want to discount Councilmember Jackson's concerns either, because I think they are important. I think, I'm looking on the, everybody knows climate change is real, and, we have to do something about it. So the question is, how do we go about doing that? And as we're looking to figure out, what our core functions are in the city of Lansing and potentially looking at someone to come in here and help us do a deep dive, I think that that is something that should be on the top of our list. I'm not quite sure about the full-time position, but, as I look at the Lansing Board of Water and Light and what they're doing, they have strategic goals. And one of their strategic goals is enhancing the well-being of our customers and community and through an objective of continuing to promote sustainability within the Lansing communities. So I think there's an opportunity for a partnership there. And maybe there's an opportunity for a designee in the mayor's office to be a liaison with Board of Water and Light, to work together to try to figure out, what exactly we need to do to support climate change. And as we look at our departments and do a deep dive and, maybe next year we come up with a full-time position. But as we're really trying to get a hold of our budget, I do think there's room for something like that. I'm not quite sure there is room for a full-time position this year, but I did not want to totally, discount what your concerns are. So I'm willing to still try to work through that. But we've got some other serious concerns, and so as we work through it, I would hope that maybe we can work with the Lansing Board of Water and Light and the mayor's office to do something in the interim until we can look as a whole of what our departments look like, and maybe, through a recommendation, next year, there might be some room to actually implement a full-time position. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney?
Just a legal moment here, because council doesn't see this all the time, but, and I've sent to everyone copies of legal opinions that go back some 25 years, that the supplemental appropriation is really different in the charter. It's not subject to amendment when it gets on the council floor. It's either an up or down vote, and it requires 6 votes. And on the matter of the reconsideration, that's 5 votes, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other council comments? Councilmember Garza.
Thank you, Madam President. I, too, am going to support this. I appreciate what you did. Obviously, I had a lot of residents in my ward that are concerned about the remapping of the Red Cedar. I'm very happy to see $318,500 going to repair our sidewalks. I mean, because there are some serious sidewalk repair that needs to be done. Not a big fan about the $100,000 for the city website, but I get it. And I just wanted to say that I support it, and I appreciate all the council support along with this, and thank you.
Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. So just a few comments, and again, I'm still want to play friendly and everything. And again, every priority is important that was named, and it's very well represented by our council people and the administration. Let's say roads, for example. It's like $800,000 to do 1 new mile of road. Can I get 1/8 of a mile? I'm just saying. The time is now. I mean, everybody says next year this and that, but literally the scientists are saying it's now. And there's a misconception that it's not savings out there, because there's so many grants and things to look at that person would be able to find and get. I'm gonna have more to say about it, but since it takes 6 votes and I'm a friendly person, I will support this because the priorities are all great. And I look forward to maybe some people helping out and looking out if there's anything in the budget or any type of like pseudo promises we can make as well.
All right, thank you. Was that a no, Vice? Okay. And my comments at this time. First of all, I think when we first passed the original appropriation and then started looking deeper into the budget and listening to some of the concerns, we realized there were a few things in there that we needed to talk about. And so council members asked that we not move that forward, that we sit on that for a little bit and get some further explanation. As we got additional explanation, there were some more concerns, and I appreciate the time that Mayor Shore gave leadership as we sat down and made proposals on this based on all the concerns on council. Again, as many of you have emphasized, the Red Cedar floodplain remapping was an issue that was extremely difficult, and when we found out that we could not handle it just with the residents, that we had to look at the total assessment with this, that we needed to figure out where we were going to come up with the money. And I think we heard over and over during the budget process from constituents about the sidewalk issues. So we really appreciate the fact that we've been able to handle both of those. And as Councilmember Hussein indicated, there are a number of public safety issues here. And this is one-time money. And that's the thing I think we need to make sure that we're thinking about, is adding a position. Would some of us like to add a police officer or a firefighter? That, you know, there is those options if we could talk to the mayor about it. But again, he also understands that this is one-time money, and how do we look at this for just this particular time? So we want to thank you for your cooperation with this. Do you have any final comments, Mayor?
Right back at you, all of you. And Councilman Jackson, yes, we are, I am very sensitive, like Councilwoman Spitzley said, I am very sensitive to your argument, and it does not fall on deaf ears. I was going to say this later, but I might as well say it now. And this is a conversation that I had with council leadership. The dollars that we're looking at, even from enterprise funds and things, we are looking at making, in essence, climate action style changes, things that we can. A lot of the money's coming that was supposed to go into the position in the budget that we'll talk about in a little while. We're going to look at how we can deal with wastewater. I actually had an interesting conversation with Mark Meadows today, who said that East Lansing is looking at putting some solar panels in some of their buildings and generating some energy through that. So we're going to put together a list of options. Our public service folks, I talked to Andy Kilpatrick and Christopher Mumby this morning, and we're going to look at some options. So I'm going to roll you into that if you're interested, because clearly this is an important issue to you and many members of the public. So we're going to do some work on that. And again, the council president and the council vice president both referenced that in the leadership meeting we had last week for your concerns, but theirs also. So it doesn't fall on deaf ears.
Okay, with that, all those in favor of the supplemental appropriations say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. That takes us to the ordinance dealing with the adoption of the recodification, the adoption of the ordinance that deals with codified ordinances. Vice President Spatafor.
Madam President, I move the ordinance for the readoption of the codified ordinances of the city of Lansing, and I'll point out that it readopts and codifies all city ordinances for the next 10 years, and I believe it is our plan to do this as part of the budget process every year once this ordinance, or every year rather. I'll stop there.
Correct. So we have that motion before us. Are there any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, next, we're going to budget review and budget policies. I would go to Councilmember Spitzley. Are there, let me start again. Are there anyone that has some revisions to the current budget that's before us? Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. I do. You know, since 2012, the financial health team has worked really hard to look at the city of Lansing, look at our financial situation, particularly as it relates to our unfunded liabilities. You know, they've done it volunteer, and you know, they've done a yeoman's job. Their recent letter recommends a number of things, but the one that recommends is the creation of a chief strategy officer or chief financial officer or whatever. And this suggestion has also been echoed by the Lansing Chamber and also by labor. We had a number of labor folks. I mean, how often does that happen? So, but the question is, you know, of course, how do we pay for it? So the amendment that I am proposing takes funds from the Greenwise, General Fund Greenwise proposal, from the general fund money that was going to be slated for the Greenwise proposal, to the tune of $104,701, and moves that towards the funding of this position. Now, everybody has a sheet of paper in front of them, and it talks about the different dollar amounts that would come, that came from each department that initially went to this Greenwise proposal, but now we would just divert it towards the creation of this entity, this chief strategy officer, this chief financial officer. So with that, I would like the budget amended to reflect that.
All right, we have a budget amendment before us. Remember, the proposal from Mayor was $285,000, but there is only $104,701 that are in the general fund budget. And so that's what we would be looking at moving to establish a chief strategy office employee. Are there, Vice President Spatafor?
I think there's more work to be done on this discussion, but I want to make a point of, I support this.
It's one motion at a time.
Okay. No, yeah, just on her motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think year after year, we've heard how important this item is to the city. We've done things around the edges. We've done other things. I think this is probably one of the single biggest threats to delivery of service and public safety in the city is our growing obligations when you start talking about the percentage of the budget that's being spent on unfunded liabilities and issues like that that are soaking up dollars that could be spent on police officers or climate change and all the other things that go along with that. So I'm very happy to hear so much discussion around this table this week, last week, in the radio, all that, about the need for this. I know Councilmember Washington, you've talked at length about the unfunded liabilities and the debts and the long-term obligations, and I on this we agree. And I think it's important that we fund this position, and I have a few more suggestions, but we'll get this one out of the way first.
Councilmember Washington.
Thank you. Councilmember Spatafor, I think we agree on a whole lot of things. However, having said that, this is incredibly important to me, and in fact, I would like to see all initiatives stopped until we get this person on board. We find out what we have, we find out where we're going. I believe we're at like 28% right now of our budget that's going to unfunded liabilities. That's for services we've received years ago. That's a huge portion. That's over a quarter of our budget. And if we keep going in the trajectory that we're headed, we're going to be at 60%, and you're not going to get anything. So to me, we should have put the brakes on years ago and had this done. I know egos get involved, pet projects get involved, personalities get involved, but I think everybody has to understand none of this is personal. None of this is personal, and this is absolutely critical. Because if we don't take care of this, and if we don't take care of it now, the ramifications are going to be worse than the ramifications of the environment now. And I'm not saying that I'm not supportive of these environmental initiatives. I'm just saying that now. I'm saying that now to everything. Until we get this in order, we find out what we have an unbiased, thick-skinned individual that can come in and tell us what's what, and hopefully we have people at the table that can take it. And I'm going to support anything that will go into this position, and then maybe in 12 months, 18 months, we can start restructuring. We can start taking on initiatives that are priorities. But I have been ringing this bell for a while, and I am so grateful to see other people on board that will finally recognize the importance of taking care of this issue. And it's going to be painful. It will be painful. And people aren't going to like it, but it's got to be done, and it's got to be done now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson, and then, was that Councilmember Garza after that? Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. So we all heard the announcement. Lansing's going green 100%. And then a lot of us were excited, like that sounds really good. And it was especially good, exciting to know that you were thinking that direction and that you were willing to invest at least that much money in, I would call it, a green initiative. Except, you know, we dug a little deeper, didn't like the idea. Council didn't like the idea. We were at the Board Water and Light meeting, and I mentioned the same thing. I said, I hope we can all try to think of something that keeps it in this boat. And we did. And you know what? This chief financial officer sounds just like what a sustainability manager is. And let me read the description really quick. A sustainability director is responsible for managing, coordinating, facilitating, and advising the development, implementation, monitoring, and improvement of local government policies, programs, and initiatives that promote local environmental, energy, economic, and social sustainability. So economic, social, we can just call it this same position. So obviously, I'm not excited to see that we're moving it out of a green initiative. However, when you look at a holistic approach, which is what sustainability is also, this fits the same job description. So I guess either if it passes without my vote, please include a huge aspect and take that into consideration when you're hiring this person. And then if not, you know, I'm sure I'll talk about this later. Oh, a couple more things. I did have some more points. I'm very sorry. It actually is, environmental things are here now. So as far as the future is concerned, it's here now. Last thing is, this person's gonna answer to the administration anyway. So, I mean, what say does council have? And also, collective bargaining is all up this year, and that's where it's all at. So, is this person gonna be in there?
Councilmember Garza and then Councilmember Spitzley, but before Councilmember Garza begins, if you would look at your policy, budget policies on the last page, it talks about the chief strategy officer, and the city attorney has made a recommendation. And what it would read is the Lansing City Council is establishing a chief strategy officer. City Council will work with the administration, the financial health team, and the unions to establish an ordinance and/or contract outlining expectations and reporting. The process will begin no later than June 30th, 2019. After the establishment of a chief strategy officer, Council will also consider the appointment of a standing committee to examine the recommendations from the chief strategy officer and issues involving long-term liability. The second paragraph was also a recommendation from the FHT team. Councilmember Garza.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, I am going to support this, and I just want to say, it's not that I don't believe in climate change or leaving less of a carbon footprint. I have young children at home, and I want to see this planet left in the best shape as possible for them, you know, as I leave. I think there's things that can be done with the city buildings as far as have them run more energy efficient, you know, maybe change the lights out to LEDs. And this chief strategy officer is obviously gonna put together what's best for the city as far as budget goes, so we can make sure that we actually can get a sustainability manager or something similar to that. So I do support this. I think it's a great move in the right direction. It's what the city needs, what the city needed a long time ago, and I'm proud to support this. Thank you.
Councilmember Spitzley, and then Councilmember Hussein.
And I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the comments. And again, this can't happen without leadership, both on council and the mayor's office. And so I'm deeply appreciative of this. I think that, you know, echoing Councilmember Washington's, this thing is a long time in coming. And so this is not This is not a negative on anybody. It's not a negative on the administration. It's not a negative on council. It is just something that we have to do, and I agree. We're looking at short-term pain for long-term gain and sustainability. You know, the chief strategy officer, I mean, I'm still gonna get back to the fact that, you know, Councilmember Jackson, I think we can get to somewhere. I'm not quite sure we can get to a full-time position, but I really want to work to where we can, you know, work with the board, work with the mayor's office, and if we're, you know, we have the, I know we did funds, we approved for something for climate change. What did we? A study. And maybe that study recommends it, but I agree. I don't want to do any new initiatives until we have this person on staff and do a deep dive of what we're doing. I don't want to hire anybody unless it's police and fire until that happens. But I do recommend that, you know, I do recognize that we need to have this chief strategy officer, and maybe at some point we will be able to have someone that does sustainability. But I really appreciate all the work everybody's done. I'm very happy with this. Thank you.
Councilmember Hussein, then Councilmember Washington.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I just wanted to thank Councilwoman Spitzley as well as Councilwoman Washington for taking the lead on the chief strategy officer piece. When you look at some of the numbers, I mean, it truly is staggering. So back in 2006, my understanding is we were spending about $25 million of all revenues on pension and OPEB, and now what we're looking at is $49.5 million. That's almost a quarter of all revenues into the city of Lansing. So when you look at the core functions that we are supposed to serve, when you look at public safety, you look at public services, you look at providing sound infrastructure and the like, it becomes more and more challenging each year. And if that trajectory continues, the reality is we will be taken over by an emergency financial manager, period. I mean, there's no question about it. And so we have to demonstrate leadership. We have to start making some tough decisions up at this day, so somebody will absolutely make those for us. So for taking the lead, I just wanted to say I appreciate it very much.
Councilmember Washington, then Councilmember Jackson.
Just really quick, I really appreciate everybody's support up here. And I will say to Councilmember Jackson, we all get it. We know climate's an issue. But maybe we could start by every one of us up here, except for Carol and Adam, drive up every day in our gas-guzzling SUVs. Maybe we could change those in.
Okay. Councilmember Jackson.
So I've always agreed that pension liability is very important. And if you remember, I supported not even trying to appeal the state's decision and go straight to the corrective action plan or whatever it says that we will accept responsibility. As far as this position, so it came up as a recommendation like last week, and I understand the financial help team reviewed the budget and took a while to have a recommendation, or that's one thing. But also, you know, no offense, but it seems like it's the administration's job to work with department heads, find efficiencies, and already try to reduce where we can. If a person comes in, that's going to be great. I still think it can be the sustainability manager. It's just when you take the green money to something new and, you know, could wait a year also. I mean, can't support it.
Vice President Spatafor.
Madam President, too, I would like to point out, in discussions with the mayor, he's been very committed to pledging the remaining $180-ish thousand in the enterprise funds to energy efficiencies. I think Andy Kilpatrick shared with me they're looking already at some huge efficiencies in wastewater, wastewater treatment, is that the right, mostly? And some on the parking fund to really invest in energy efficiencies. And I know that you're working on a contracted basis with a company to do some performance contracting to reduce our energy consumptions by huge amounts that will pay for itself. I think you say $10,000 reductions annually is what we're hoping for? Okay, got it. But they're looking to reduce operations. So it's not as if we're ignoring it by moving it. And I think that's getting lost in the conversation. It's still very important and very much a part of this budget, just not specifically in some ways. So I think it needs to be said at least. So I appreciate the indulgence.
Councilmember Hussein.
Just real quick, and to that point, so I think what we've actually done is driven the process a bit. when we look at the $285,000 and the way it was going to be spent on the recs, and I appreciate the power of symbolism, but the reality is we weren't going to make our buildings more efficient. We were not going to drive the Board of Water and Light in terms of producing more renewable energy. We were not going to reduce our carbon footprint in any measure. And so now what I'm hearing is that $185,000 will actually be spent in terms of trying to do some of those things. So I think we're at a better place than we were March 25th when this was presented to us. And so again, I think, with the administration and with council, kind of like with the Townsend ramp money, we have worked together, we've driven the process, and I think what we have is a better outcome.
Thank you. Are there other comments? I do want to also say that, again, I think Vice President Spatafor reiterated it correctly with our meeting with the mayor when we were talking about this position for Chief Strategy Officer. There was a commitment that was made to look at how we can make a difference with the utilities and the things that we're doing, not just have a credit that was out there. And also understanding we have a couple of studies, the study that's being done in intergovernmental as well as another study that the mayor is working on. So those should help as we move into another budget year and being able to demonstrate that we have reduced that carbon footprint with the differences that we're making. So are there any other comments? Seeing none, this would be a vote to amend the budget to include a chief strategy officer that council would be establishing, and that we would be working on with the administration, the financial health team, and the unions to establish either an ordinance and/or contract outlining the expectations and reporting in this process will begin no later than June 30th. After the establishment of a chief strategy officer, council will then consider the appointment of a standing committee to examine the recommendations from the chief strategy officer and issues involving the long-term legacy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Oppose.
Okay. That takes us to Vice President Spatafor.
Madam President, what's being passed around to you is a resolution.
Are you moving, you're not moving the resolution yet, are you?
No, an amendment to explain.
Oh,
that explains
where
the
is it?
resolution. It's coming around. I think Jim
Okay.
Short stopped it.
Okay.
Jim Short stopped it. Hold on. Just, it puts it in context, but I'll explain it out loud.
Okay, this is the whole resolution.
Yep, and I'll just move a motion. This is just for context of what it would do to
Okay,
the budget.
we-
I can pull it back if it confuses everyone, but I have a motion in front of you, and I'd like to move to reduce appropriations as follows. Including Councilmember Spitzley's $104,700 in renewable.
No, that's already done. Don't
Okay.
talk about that anymore. Okay.
I'd like to withdraw my motion. I would like
Okay.
to make another motion
Okay.
to reduce the following appropriations. The arts grants city support agencies operating by $12,500. The
Okay,
facade,
we have to do these one at a time,
okay,
okay?
then I will do that first. And I would like to point out, this is not a reduction in the arts grants, it's a reduction in the increase. The mayor proposed $25,000. I'm proposing a $12,500 increase and reducing that.
And where are you proposing that money go?
That will go into the same line item as the renewable energy credit in the finance operating section.
No, don't you mean we just put a chief strategy officer? Isn't that where you?
That's where I'd like it to go. Is there a special line item for that in the budget?
It will be when we're all done with this.
That's where it's gonna go then.
Okay, all right.
Then don't look at this resolution, because
Okay, all right, thank you. So-
sorry, Sherry.
So you have a motion to reduce the line item for arts and culture by $12,500. and to add that money
To the chief
into
strategy
the $104,701 for a chief strategy officer.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's the motion. Councilmember Hussein?
Nope, that answered my question.
All right. Are there any other questions on this? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Vice President Spatafor.
Let's see if I can do this right this time.
That's-
I would like to make a motion to reduce the facade grant ED&P operating appropriation by $12,500 and place it in the funds designated for the chief strategy officer.
We have a motion before us on that. Are there any questions? Yes.
Same thing, I just want the caveat, we're not reducing the funds. It was a $25,000 increase, proposing a $12,000 500 increase instead of a $25,000 increase.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hussein, then Councilmember Washington, and then Councilmember Jackson.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me, and I'm going to tell you why. The small businesses outside of our downtown area receive very little support, in my opinion, from the city. And there's not the same, when you talk about economic incentives and things like that, the cupboard is absolutely bare for our small businesses. And so when we, fought for this, a few of us fought for this back in fiscal year 2018, we were looking at a number of almost $250,000. And I would love to see it grow to that at some point. That's the merit and the value I see in this particular program. But I do want to recognize the fact that in fiscal year 2018, we funded this at $15,000. Mayor Shore and his administration increased that by tenfold, which I really appreciated. And then we're looking at, my understanding is now another $12,500 on top of that with this reduction. And I want people to understand that this is a really, really important line item to me, but this CSO is so important that I will support this. So I think all of us are giving up some of the things that we would like to see in this budget to support what is, in my opinion, a critical position. So I will support this.
Okay, Councilmember Washington, and then Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Madam President. This one gave me a little bit of burn too, but I'm going to support it. I have Rio Town, I have Old Town, I have the small businesses on East Michigan, and this, in my opinion, is one of the only ways we support our small businesses. However, as we said, I think this structuring officer is so important that this is the little bit of pain we're going to see, and you know what? I'm thrilled with the way it has been increased through the last couple of years, so I'm very thankful for that, and I will be supporting this.
Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. I will not be in support because it's not allocating any money towards some initiatives. And I just want to remind, it's very awkward to be up here, but someone has to be an advocate. And also there are so many of my constituents who demand and are really concerned, who demand that we do something, and who are really concerned. You see Linda's here, there's so many more, and you heard them all at the participatory budget, those who were there. More importantly, there's experts in the field, and I encourage everybody who has Google just to Google International Commission on Climate Change 1.5 report, read a little bit of the executive summary, and then if you're interested, explore more. That's how I got started, and now I'm speaking to local experts like Tom Stanton and Terry Link. These are nationally known experts right here in Lansing. In fact, Terry Link said that he would volunteer his services. It was up to, 90 days or something for the city to get started and get in the right direction. So I promise this is important enough where someone got to advocate, so I won't be supporting anything that doesn't include that. And I'm still hopeful that, maybe there's some room out there in this year because the time is now, so.
Okay, Vice President Spatafor.
No, just
None? Okay. I concur with everyone. We fought really hard for the facade grants, but as we look at this, each one of us need to step forward, and as long as the fact that we have increased this, I will be willing to go along with this. So with that, we have a motion. All those in favor of the motion to reduce the facade grants by $12,500, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, Vice President Spatafor.
Last one, I promise. I move to reduce the appropriations for the Sister Cities City Support Agency's operating budget by $5,000 and place that money in the funds designated for the Chief Strategy Officer. And I looked at this. We had a $20,000 appropriations for Sister Cities last year. It went from 30 to 20, and the hope was that they would become self-sustaining. I don't think they've done much efforts towards raising money. Hopefully a slight reduction will light a little fire under that effort, and also add $5,000 to the Chief Strategy Officer contract, bringing that up to $134,700.
All right, we have a motion. I have Councilmember Spitzley, then Councilmember Jackson, and Councilmember Washington. Was your hand up? Okay, Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Councilmember Spatafor. You know, I am one who's been to a couple of the Sister City events, and I appreciate those. I think that, you know, type of camaraderie among communities is important. But as we look at short-term pain, I think it's absolutely appropriate to look at this. And I also just want to take this opportunity to continue to tell Councilmember Jackson, I hear what you're saying, and I'm hoping that we can work through this. But again, I always say, we all want the same thing. You know, everybody up here on council, everybody in the administration, we all want the same thing. We want a healthy community, healthy environment. We want a financially secure community. How we go about it is always where the rub is. And so I support this. And again, thank you to the administration and to our leadership for working this through.
Okay, Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. So
Excuse me.
I have a new line that's coming. But first, it's just very interesting how creative we can get, you know, when we want to make something happen. And everybody's probably going to have an amendment. I'm even going to have one to try to make something happen. And two, Sister Cities is very personal to me. I was an exchange student to Japan in 8th grade. I hosted through the Sister Cities program. I've been to this last year, the Otsu event, the Japan event, the Chinese delegation, and when the Ghana delegation came, I heard the mayor firsthand working with leaders from over there trying to talk about development and possible future goals. So, and I promised the lady and the people there that Sister Cities is so important to me that I would not support cutting it. So that's another reason that I won't be supporting it. And again, at the Japanese delegation, one of the guys, he said, you know my host brother, Stephen Davis? I said, yep. And I called Stephen Davis, gave the guy the phone. He's like, Stephen, I miss you, man. 20 years, where you been? It's just a lot that the Sister Cities does for young people that we should not forget about.
All right, thank you. Are there other council member comments? I think my comment on this is that by cutting the budget, we are not doing away with Sister Cities. Sister Cities, when it was originated, there was a promise that they would become a 501c3 and they would start funding themselves. And that was supposed to have started some time ago. And it's been something that has, you know, council has gradually, through the mayor's budget, and that has reduced that allocation. I actually spoke to the president of Sister Cities on Friday, Jack Davis, and I told him that that was one of the things that I had heard that was a possible proposal, and he said, well, we'll just have to raise the money, won't we? So I think, you know, knowing that he's aware of that and that sees that the program can continue with the reduction in funds, I will be supporting this. So are there any other questions or concerns? Yes.
Are you still voting on Mr. Spatafor's motion?
Yes, we are.
Sorry.
Okay. All those in favor of removing the $5,000 and putting it in with the chief strategy fund, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Councilmember Hussein.
I am going to move that we reduce the line item for salaries under neighborhoods and citizen engagement by $60,000 and move those or I should say add those to the funds designated for the CSO position, and let me explain. First, when Mayor Shore passed, or I should say when he issued his executive order in 2018 to create this department, I was incredibly supportive. I was very supportive as we looked to kind of restructure, and that department went from 2 to 5 employees. I believe it was in 2019. I've been very supportive of the Walking Wednesdays, very supportive of the neighborhood summits, and some of the other things that particular department has kind of pushed and propelled forward. With that being said, we learned a lot throughout this budget process. We vetted this budget department by department in public open meetings, line by line. We had 2 neighborhood meetings. We had a public hearing. We took these suggestions, these recommendations to our own constituents through constituent contact meetings, at respective neighborhood association meetings and the like. And then we brought in, obviously, neighborhood, I shouldn't say neighborhood, but labor leaders, and we learned quite a bit through that process as well. And some of the things that we learned, for instance, we know that the fire department requested 6 new positions, and that was not approved because the money was simply not there. We know that we are increasing the Lansing Police Department's funded positions from 202 to 203, but we also know that if you're looking for an additional officer per platoon, 3 platoons, per day, so a true 24/7 presence, you're looking at an addition of 5 to 6 officers, just for that one added kind of presence when we talk about 24/7 presence. We know that zoning code and building safety need more folks within their ranks. We know that human resources could use more. We asked for a legislative writer as part of our budget, and that was not approved. There are a number of critical positions that are not going to be funded because the money is simply not there. So to truly realize, in my opinion, the benefits of a chief strategy officer, we have to make sure that we're funding it at an appropriate level. When we went out into the neighborhoods, which was very interesting to me, it was the neighborhood leaders. It was a lot of the association presidents that were saying, you know what, this position, great maybe in the future, but not now. And I think what really kind of drilled things home for me was when we brought the labor leaders in. These are our frontline representatives, and what they were telling us is that they have critical shortages among their ranks, and they're not able to do what they need to do because they simply do not have the manpower. So for me, we are all sacrificing a little bit here. We're all being asked to do either the same or more, to be quite frank, with less. And so for that reason, I just cannot support that added $60,000 within neighborhoods and citizen engagement, again, when so many of these other positions are not being funded because we have real budgetary challenges. So with that being said, I would move that we reduce the salaries line item from neighborhoods and citizen engagement from $60,000, by $60,000, and add to the funds designated for the CSO position.
Vice President Spatafor, then Councilmember Washington. And did I see your hand up, Councilmember Spitzley? All right.
Madam President, thank you. And to Councilmember Hussein, I appreciate the thought you put into this. Unfortunately, I will not be able to support the amendment. I hope you can understand. I have seen a lot of information from some folks that maybe not made it to the hearings that express some wonderful support for some of the wonderful work that's going on in the department. And I think it's worth investing a little bit more in because we do have so many neighborhood groups and I've seen folks engaged in a lot of different ways. I don't need to talk a lot, but I just want to let you know that I appreciate the work you're trying to do on this, but I can't support this one at this time, so thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Washington, then Councilmember Spitzley, then Councilmember Garza, then Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to support this for a number of reasons. One, I find firefighters, police officers more important than somebody to serve Lansing, and I'm going to put it right out there. The director of this department is rarely here. She's been to New Orleans, she goes to Boston for the Bloomberg, she's been to New York, she's been to Portugal, she's been to, I could go on and on and on. And until I see more of a commitment from her to be in our city, for which we're paying her to do work right here, I can't support this. Maybe next year, and she even said at her presentation that she intends to be going out more for the city. And we need her here. We need her here doing her job. Every time I turn around, I think she just got back from Pennsylvania. It just goes on and on and on. And I'd like to travel like that too, but right now we need her home doing work right here in Lansing, and So for this year, I'm going to support moving this over.
I have Councilmembers Spitzley, Garza, Jackson, and Hussein.
Thank you, Madam President. I think the office does great work. I don't, but I've heard mixed comments as well from some neighborhood groups for and against. But I'm not really in the habit of kind of second guessing that in general. My issue is, that if we're gonna have this person come on board and take a deep dive, aside from all the other stuff, it's not personal, it's just that I want that guy, that person to look at the programs and then make a recommendation on staffing and funding. If I could cross out all new initiatives and all new staffing except for police and fire, I would, but I can't do that. But on the other hand, it's not personal for me. That's absolutely not personal, and so I fully expect it'll be vetoed, and I hope he does veto it. I won't vote to override the veto. This to me is more of a symbolic vote, because I do believe I will not vote to override the veto, but I am going to vote against the position right now. I think that we shouldn't be doing this until we have somebody come on board, and so I will approve.
Okay, thank you. I have Councilmember Jackson, Hussein, Washington. Garza.
So as we can continue to select which areas to cut or save from to create this new position, first I wonder, what is the salary? Isn't it like 180,000, or isn't that just with the fringe? Does anybody know? And did anybody negotiate that price? Wouldn't that person whose job is to help with our financial ability, wouldn't they do it for a bargain, or put it on their resume like, I saved Lansing from their pension crisis, which I do agree it is a crisis. Also, the corrective action plan, isn't that the government's job to tell us what we have to do to fix or to get on track? Isn't that the same thing this new position is supposed to be tasked to do? And then lastly, we can get a sustainability manager, or call it whatever you want, which still fits this same description, I'd argue, and they could work on both. So I can't support, anything that doesn't include that in mind. And as far as taking it from this new position, from the meetings I go to, everybody's very excited about the department, and that's worth something there.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hussein, Washington, and Garza.
Just real quickly to Councilman Spatafor, no hard feelings. You have every right to not support this motion. We can agree to disagree on this, absolutely. For me, and I just wanted to reemphasize that there are departments such as police, such as fire, that are not getting what they need. And to be quite frank, when you talk about the viability of our neighborhoods, and you talk about hierarchy of needs, those things are at the top of the heap each and every time. And so we know for a fact that we are not able to fund these departments at the rate that they should be funded. And because of that, we're seeing real issues within our neighborhoods that I just don't know can be countered by this $60,000 in this particular position. With regards to a potential veto, I understand that is probably in forthcoming. But what I will ask the mayor to do is just to simply sit back and truly reflect on what we heard from our from some of our frontline workers and their representatives as they came before this body and talked about what they're seeing out in the field. Because again, we are asking them to do more with less, and I think we need to take a lead, and some of our department heads need to take a lead in doing the same. And then when it comes to correspondence, I saw the same correspondence you saw. From Joe Nelson, it was a beautifully written letter. Stan, I think it was Parker, and a number of others. But to be quite frank, it was overwhelming in terms of what we heard when we were out in the neighborhoods, as part of the public hearing, the emails, the calls, so I receive pretty much the same correspondence that everybody at this dais is getting, and when you weigh that, it was disproportionate. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Washington, then Garza.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to clarify this. I'm not against the department, and I don't want to see the department go away. I just want to see some changes, and right now is not the time to spend $60,000 on a position that is not critical. It just is not the time. I had Joe Nelson. Joe Nelson's assumption was that we were getting rid of the department. Her letter had nothing to do with this position, and I let her know that the department is not going away. Nobody wants to suggest that it go away. I think the department is a good thing. I just think this position isn't necessary at this time. Maybe next year, I don't know. But I will vote to override the veto, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I think this position, this chief strategy officer, is so critical, I will vote to override the veto.
Just so that we are not getting ahead of ourselves. One, all we're voting on is moving this into a budget. We have no idea what's going to happen until after this evening. Isn't that correct, Mayor? So, we have an idea. Okay. I have Councilmember Garza, then Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Madam President. I am going to support this amendment by Councilman Hussein, and I appreciate what you want to do is help out with the neighborhoods, but being at the meetings, and I mean, we just had a South Side joint constituent contact, and not one person was supportive of it, and I have to listen to my constituents, so it's nothing against what you're doing, Mayor. I hope you don't take offense to this, but I mean, whether it was my constituent contact, our joint constituent contact, the budget meetings, I didn't hear one person say they supported this, so I have to go with my constituents, and I think it's vital that we get enough money to hire this CFO. And I want to recommend that maybe we don't call it a chief strategy officer. I don't want people to get it mixed up with a CSO, as in like the water. So CFO is what I'm going to call it. So thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. So I have no idea what's going to happen. Is you guys know like what this outcome's going to be? And okay, so I just want to put on the record, I was not in any of these conversations, so I don't know if there's a veto coming. Either way, so again, there's a lot of, I'm sure, people getting together, you know, what's going to be voted on, will you support? Peter gave me a call, thank you. You know, one person gave me a call. Kathy and I, we talked briefly. I could say she would like to be here, and she would probably also support, you know, a similar cause, so I'm holding it alone. But I just want to put on the record that I wasn't a part of any conversations, and I don't know what's going to happen.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, Councilmember Spitzley.
I
And
wasn't
have-
either. I'm just guessing. I
Okay.
mean, you know, to me, it just, you know, I've worked, was a lobbyist. I've been around the legislature a lot. I'm just guessing. I haven't been a part of any conversations about that, but, so, yeah, that.
Okay, all right, okay. I have a comment before I call on the mayor, and again, this is the council's opportunity to talk about a budget that the mayor presented and making amendments to it. So I just want to clarify that, Mr. Mayor, okay? I will be supporting reducing this position. The question I have for Angie, just to be on the record, the $60,000 is a combination of salary and benefits. Am I not mistaken?
I believe so. I'll look that up.
All right, so that, just so that Councilmember Hussein might want to revise his motion to, you know, include that. So he had said from the personnel line, and it's not coming all from personnel. It's coming from fringes as well. Second of all, I have watched over the years this council who had, when I first came on, we had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 employees that helped council members be able to do their job here at the city. We had 3 office people. We had City TV that was up here that also filled in and worked with the office. We had 2 internal auditors. And when we put our budget together this year, we had asked for an additional person. Now, in this whole discussion, one of the things that we had to make a decision on was, do we ask for something for ourselves, and decided no, you know, that, again, having and listening to the financial health team on where it was more important than making sure that we had somebody else helping us. So for those reasons, I will also be supporting this amendment. Councilmember, I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. I'm not going to weigh in on the debate. This is your debate, not mine, clearly.
Yes.
So I do want to respond to one thing, and again, I very much respect everybody here. You've changed my budget 4 times, or potentially 4 times, and again, I'm not going to weigh in on that. Councilwoman Washington, I respect her very much, but I do want to respectfully disagree with the comments made about the director, because we have many directors that do a lot of travel on behalf of our city. Our police chief travels a lot. He's on the PERF board. Our economic development director travels a lot. Our parks director travels. Our IT director travels. All of our directors do some form of traveling out of this city to promote this city. It turns out when you're a city that's a leader, other people want you there, and I think that's a good thing. Our director of neighborhoods has been asked to go to a variety of things. She's also here quite a bit, and I know I see her all the time. She is seen all the time, whether it's Walking Wednesdays, whether it's Citizen Academy, whether it's the emails she sends out, the meetings she has with our priority neighborhoods. So I would like to just indicate that this is no different than what any other director does. I have to be out of the city from time to time, and I am representing this city, and I think that being a world-class city, as Mayor Hollister asked for, we're getting there. And
we
because
thank
of
you for
that, we have expectations, and especially when other people want us to come and they pay to come, and then they give us grants and things like that because we're doing a lot of that work. A lot of that has been left out of that conversation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I just, for the record, I want to clarify that I appreciate your comment about changing your budget, but I want you to understand we're talking about 0.17% of the budget in the general fund, and if we were to look at the entire budget, we're talking about 0.02. So we're being very minuscule in what we're looking at. Okay, just so that we are all on board with that. Councilmember Washington.
Thank you, Madam President, and I appreciate this, Mayor Shore. We're just going to respectfully have to agree to disagree because I don't see it the way you do. But I would also remind folks that this is our job. This is our job, is to go over this budget and make recommended changes. We do ordinances and we do the budget. So it's not a personal thing. I'm sure when Mayor Shore was in the legislature, he didn't rubber stamp Snyder's budgets. I hope to God he didn't do that. And so I think he can respect that we've made 4 changes. That was his job, and now it's our job. So to go out there, it's not a personal thing. I don't see the director of neighborhood, this position is critical, in not her position, but this secondary position is absolutely not critical. And I know there's some sentiment in there, in having to have to make sure we take care of her, but you know what, it's our job, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Thank you.
Okay, I see Councilmember Hussein's hand up.
I just need to know if I need to withdraw my motion and restate it. Angie.
So personnel, when you asked about the personnel on the fringe,
Yes.
fringe is part of personnel.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's
we're
not-
good.
yeah,
All right,
yeah.
thank you. We have the motion before us. Are there any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We have 5 votes to move forward. Okay, are there any other amendments to the budget at this time? Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. I would like to offer amendment that would ultimately create a position, sustainability manager, and I put the job description generally already on the record, but I would like to take $60,000 from the vacant law position, sorry, Jim, and $100,000 from the proposed code position, and create a roughly, whatever it takes. I thought the salary could be between $70,000 and $90,000 to attract somebody qualified and competent to lead us, and the savings will follow. And it's nothing against law. And Jim, you know, I was an assistant city attorney right before you, so I know you're stretched. I know you're stretched. And code, obviously, a lot of neighbors, you know, they're very concerned, but our code does such a good job. I'm in general services, and every time Scott Sanford comes with his A game, and he's ready. So he says he's responsive in a certain time, and I gotta take him for that. And then we look at what the counter is, trying to create the position. That's high on a lot of people's priorities. You know, look at the national stage. Look at what the scientists are saying. Look at our future. Look at what a sustainability manager could do for the city as far as savings. And don't think of it only environmental. This ultimately could engulf the position we're creating, that we're moving everything around to create. So if, you know, right now these positions aren't even filled that I'm considering or that I'm proposing that we amend. These aren't even filled positions, so no one's getting cut, no one's getting moved. It's just creating a position and satisfying the needs and the wants of many people, a lot in the Fourth Ward, a lot you heard from, a few sitting out there right now. History is gonna show, like, what did we do and when did we do it? So what do you guys wanna do about that? I mean, I'm not trying to be on the bad side.
Thank you, Councilmember Jackson. Just for some clarification, first of all, the $60,000, if we reduce that position, Angie, from the city attorney's budget, that would eliminate a position. We would have an unfunded position there. Is that correct?
There would not be sufficient funding to fully staff the attorney's office based on the current budgeted positions.
All right. Second of all, the $100,000 for code compliance, is that under building safety?
That's under code compliance, which is the Economic Development and Planning Department.
Okay, and those are general fund dollars?
Correct.
All right. And if we were looking at, just a minute, if we're looking at a $90,000 position, the last, my understanding was that we need to look at about double that for benefits. Is that still the strategy when you're putting the budget together?
It depends on the position and the bargaining unit that it belongs to. I would estimate for the
I would say
first-
this is an exempt position at this point.
For the first year, before there are allocations for legacy costs and things, I would gauge about 30 grand for fringe benefits.
Okay, so we're talking about 120,000. And your proposal was for 160. Okay. Now, I have Councilmember Spitzley, Councilmember Garza. Did I see Vice President Spatafor? Yes, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, I just voted against $60,000 position for neighborhood engagement. So I can't, in good conscience, vote for this, particularly after the speech I just gave about, you know, waiting until we get a recommendation. I'm still trying to, having said that, I'm still trying to figure out how we can do this. You know, we've got this study that's going on, and we put money towards that. You know, we've got the Lansing Board of Water and Light, who clearly is the largest polluter, no offense, Dick, in the city of Lansing. You know, I believe that they should be the primary driver of whatever sustainability. Now, I still say that maybe we have a liaison in the mayor's office that works with the Board of Water and Light, and maybe that comes later, but if I'm going to stay true and vote no against vote no to remove dollars from one department, I can't then turn around and vote yes for another position. So I'm gonna have to, as much as I think it's important, I'm not gonna be able to support that.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Garza, and then Vice President Spatafor and Councilmember Hussein.
Thank you, Madam President. Brian, I'm on the Intergovernmental Relations Committee with you, and I want to work with you as far as getting a sustainability manager or move the city forward to leave less of a carbon footprint. But when you talk about code, I did a ride along. I met with code on multiple occasions, and they need help. I mean, we need more code compliance officers. We need them out in our community. We need premise inspectors. So I think this is vital for our city, as well as public safety. I think that's huge. We're not on public safety, but this is part of the bones. This is part of our infrastructure, and that's why I can't support this. So I appreciate your effort, though.
Okay, Vice President Spatafor.
I have a question that may not be able to answer tonight, but it should be, is how much of that position was funded by increased fees associated with collecting revenue from adding a new code officer? So does this bring the budget out of balance?
Yes, that was about, of the 100,000, it was about 80,000 was offset by revenues.
So $80,000, it's more like 160,000. So it's a $100,000 transfer from code, 60 from OCA, and then a $80,000 revenue reduction, so it's actually $180,000 reduction. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Hussein.
That was actually the point I was going to make, and that's what I was concerned about. But real quick, though, I want to acknowledge Councilman Jackson. You made a statement earlier that, it's awkward, and you should not feel awkward. It is absolutely your job to represent the folks that, you're talking to and engaging with in the Fourth Ward, and I think you do a good job doing that. With regards to this particular position, I struggle a little bit, when the conversation goes, essentially proceeds the path of we're not doing anything and we need to act now. I think what we heard earlier is that the $185,000 in enterprise funds that were going to be used toward the purchasing of RECs are going to be used for tangible outcomes. I think the other piece is that we do have a climate action plan that is ongoing right now. We do have conversations in intergovernmental that are ongoing right now, and born from that was supposed to be recommendations, which include potential for dollars in implementation and things like that. So I think we are doing something not right now, but I also feel it's, whether it be the RECs, whether it be this, that it's almost putting the cart before the horse, because we do have this climate action plan that is forthcoming, and I would really like to see the recommendations from that. And then I just want to touch really quickly on the code piece. When I first came in to City Council, I spoke to not Scott Sanford, but the frontline workers, and I asked them, what would you need to truly do your job the way it needs to be done when you consider our rental rates, when you consider the size of the city, and they said that at minimum, they needed 10 code officers and 4 premise inspectors. We're close. And I think this gets us actually to those minimum levels, but it's very, very important, I think, that I spoke about this earlier, but that we're talking to those frontline workers all the time, the folks that are really doing the work, on the ground level. And so I think the added position within code is absolutely appropriate and responsive. So I can't support this, but again, I do appreciate Councilman Jackson and the advocacy for his folks over in the Fourth Ward.
I have Councilmember Jackson and Vice President Spatafor.
Thank you. So as far as balancing the budget and the code officer bringing in revenue, we should not forget that the sustainability manager will save money, will find the efficiencies, will work with the departments to get on the same page, which will save money. So I don't want it to, and again, I only got this from the local experts that I mentioned who talks about all these different initiatives and all these different grants that's available, and how we should not forget that it's a little money to leverage more money, and that the savings is there. So, as far as balancing the budget, why don't we do the thing where it says count what is going to be saved to make it happen? But other than that, there is a range of money, and if anybody could put their heads together for a little more, or something that could work, that would, I'm open for that, of course.
Vice President Spatafor, and then I have a comment.
In the least patronizing way possible, I do really want to thank Councilmember Jackson for his commitment to this issue. I think that you're going to be our environmental conscience on this for the next few years, and I hope that we can work together, adopting the climate action plan suggestions and recommendations, and those will come just about when we're looking at the budget for next year. So we should really be talking about that. And tomorrow, in fact, in public service, we're having a discussion about how we can take a look at some of the services under public service to help reduce carbon emissions and look for some efficiencies as well. So I'm committed to seeing your vision through, just not in this particular budget. So I really do appreciate you sticking to this and holding our feet to the fire on it.
Are there other council comments? With that, I'm not going to be able to support this, but part of it is the fact that we have to have a balanced budget. And if the budget was proposed with revenues that are coming from code compliance, in order to make this work, we'd have to be able to either demonstrate that we're creating fees, we're doing something that would pay for that position to begin with. Second of all, you gave in our budget priorities a environmental stewardship summary, and and we haven't gotten there yet, but one of my suggestions would be when we get there is to look at incorporating some of the language dealing with the non-general fund dollars of $180,000 that would work on making energy efficiencies to improve that you want to see something in writing. You want to see that we're doing something. This would be one of the places. I know it's not everything you want, but at least it would be something moving in that direction. So, Councilmember Washington.
Thank you, Madam President. And I want Councilmember Jackson to understand that I've been eating organic food probably longer than most people have been alive. And I have always been incredibly conscientious about our water and air because I know without it we can't live. I just don't wear it on a billboard. But what I am saying is I am not willing to put this type of money forward without a plan. And if we don't have a plan, and it must be a holistic plan, Lansing can't cure the problem. We need the Tri-County area. We need the Board of Water and Light. We need to talk about trees and urban sprawl and dumping in the rivers. I remember when rivers were catching on fire, for God's sakes. I mean, I've studied this for a very, very long time, so understand that I'm very conscientious about it. But I want to see a comprehensive plan. I want to see a holistic plan. I want to know what buildings are we even going to have in a year. We're talking about moving city council. And again, every one of us drives up here in an SUV. That is not environmentally friendly. You know, there are many, many things we can do, and I'm glad that we're going to have this money, this 184, I believe we still have, to make some real differences into, we don't even have the study back yet. So, you know, I get your passion, I share the passion. But it needs to be done thoughtfully and responsibly, and it needs to have an entirely holistic approach. I mean, for God's sakes, that's why I'm all about building up Michigan Avenue. Let's stop the urban sprawl. Let's quit going into our wetlands and taking up our green space. It's not just city buildings. We have to have a much larger conversation about this. And I'm hoping within the next year we can start those conversations. But let's get the low-hanging fruit. Let's get the report from the study we put money in, and let's do this responsibly. That's all I'm saying, because I'm on board with you, Brian. I am.
All right, we have, yes, Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, and I appreciate everybody's attitude going forward. For the most part, it's kind of like, you know, even though we haven't voted yet, it sounds like this is going to be hard for this year. And to Councilwoman Washington's point about moving forward without a plan, hiring somebody, that's kind of what you're doing with the financial health recommendation, is somebody, we don't even know who it is or what they're gonna talk about or recommend, but it's gonna be to the goal of curing our pension liability or working on it, just like this is to the goal of sustainability, which includes economic and social, just saying. And, you know, as far as where I came up with this idea, it's only from not only just meeting with my group and Anna Fisher and everybody, but talking to the local experts. Tom Stanton, you can probably Google him, and Terry Link, you can probably Google him also, both national experts, and they suggested this as well.
All right, thank you. On the motion, all those in favor of the motion say aye. All those opposed, aye. The motion fails. Now let us go to the budget. Were there any other recommendations? Seeing, okay.
I would like to recommend an amendment that captures not the code officer, but instead reduces each department by an equal percentage based on their totals to equal $100,000 plus the vacant law position.
All right, we have a motion before us. All those in favor of the motion say aye. All those opposed, aye. Are there any other motions? All right, at this point, let's go to the budget policies.
Point of order?
Yes,
Could we revisit what was adopted in terms of the budget changes? I have changes to the Department of Economic Development and Planning for the facade grants. I have our non-departmental city-supported agencies for the arts grants in the sister cities of $12,500 each. I have the neighborhood and
step back
Sorry?
a minute. The sister cities was 5,000.
yes. Did I not
Okay.
say that? I'm sorry.
All right.
Did I? Okay. Yep.
You said, I thought you said.
12,500 each.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was for the facade and the arts.
Correct.
Yes, sorry. Yep.
Okay.
I have the
I'm
neighborhood.
sure we'll take it, but that's not,
I have the Neighborhood and Community Engagement Department for $60,000.
Correct.
And then the Greenwise Initiative of $104,700.
yes.
And then those monies being moved to which area? We haven't specified yet where
It's
they'd be.
and that's, you'll have to create an account. This is for the chief strategy officer,
Correct. I'm wondering which department that is being proposed.
the administration.
In the mayor's office?
Yes, we'll work on putting together, as we discussed before, we'll work on an ordinance or a contract that we'll all sit down and work on together.
If I may, I know in the conversation we had with leadership, you had mentioned a control account, and I've since been told.
We did, but it was recommended by the city attorney not to do it that way,
So we're
so.
just gonna put it into the mayor's budget and then.
And then
forward.
once we, yes,
There's
and,
budget language, so, okay, so it's going into the mayor's budget, and then there's language in there that you have in the budget policy.
correct.
So that's your answer, Angie?
Yes.
It's going into the mayor's office budget.
All right, thank you. All right. Does that answer all your questions with that one?
Actually does, except for within the mayor's office budget, we have personnel and we have operating. So we would have to specify within the budget resolution.
Operating, the city attorney says.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to the budget policies. If you go to page, I'm sorry about that, 1, 2, 3, 4. Page 4, where it is highlighted in the yellow. This was the corridor facade grants that were added in the last budget, and so I don't believe that we need this. Again, are there anyone that has any angst about us taking it out? So what we have is a motion. We would need a motion, Councilmember Hussein, to take this section out. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Councilmember Spatafor had spoke at the last meeting to the non-motorized vehicle safety, and we heard no comments from that. Council Vice President Spatafor, do you have a motion?
I would move to amend the budget priorities to include the non-motorized vehicle safety amendment.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed. Councilmember Jackson, we have the environmental stewardship. This is where you might want to add the language about the non-general fund $180,000 being used for energy efficiencies.
Thank you. I guess, should I know the actual number or just describe it since it's a general policy?
I believe the number is, it's, just a minute, I had it here. Where did I have it? Peter, I've got $180,299. So if you said 180,000, you'd be
I'm sorry, that was for the totals of what
the non-general fund.
of the non-general fund, I'm sorry.
Well, I would like to first put the policy, since it's just a paragraph, environmental stewardship. The city of Lansing is concerned about its environment and strives to be a good steward as such. The city recognizes the importance of sustainability and shall affirmatively make progress towards its commitment to the goals in the Paris Agreement. The city will take a proactive approach and appropriate funds to reduce the city's net emissions output, increase its energy efficiency, and improve its wastewater treatment and waste management programs, and shall dedicate the non-general funds of $180,299, fill in the blank where it came from, towards that.
Non-general fund. Are there any questions on that? Councilmember, Vice President Spatafor.
I have an issue with the shalls. Appropriation is not a mandate to spend, and this makes it
Correct.
appear as such. I would be more comfortable with language that was a bit more.
Well, one we can't direct, so
Okay,
I was just going to get to that.
very good.
So
Madam President?
we request is the proper word. Is the city attorney's going, yeah? Okay. Yes,
Madam President, I have an amount of 175,300. That's 280,000 minus 104,700 is the balance of the.
what is the balance?
175,300.
300, okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, are there any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed. Next, we have, and this came from Angie, the LHOPE program they are going to offer not only to full-time but part-time employees as well. And this is, and those in the bargaining units have agreed to participate along with the following non-bargaining unit groups: Executive Management Group, non-bargaining group, mayoral staff, district court employees, and city council staff employees. And this is the funding that we have in that. So, Vice President Spatafor, this is a motion.
I would move the language amending the budget priorities to include the Lansing homeownership program for employees.
All right, we have that before. So are there any questions or concerns?
I do have one question.
Yes.
I was speaking with some real estate agents in the city about this program, and many of them, the few that I was talking to, weren't actually realtors, excuse me. They would probably be mad at me about that one. We're not aware of this program, so I would just encourage maybe reaching out to GLA, the Greater Lansing Area Association Realtors, and making sure that they're aware of these various programs that are great for our employees, but also good for homeownership in the city. But other than that, great program, and I'm happy to support
We've
it.
reached out before. We'll have to continue to do that. Okay, any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed. Then let's go back to page 1. Under the vacancy factor, that number needs to be changed from 500,000 to 700,000. Vice President Spatafor?
I would move to change the vacancy factor from $500,000 to $700,000. Is that
All right.
per administration recommendation?
Well, that's what's in the budget.
Nope, that's what's in the budget.
Are there any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, it passes unanimously. Okay, now, Vice President Spatafor, we need a motion on the budget.
Madam President?
Yes,
I have one more item. There is a typo in the, and my apologies, there is a
yes, I was
typo
going to
in
get
the
to that on the resolution.
Yes.
Yes, it should read, if you're looking at the resolution, it should, where the now for be it resolved, it should say 19.44. Mills. Yeah,
So, do you need another
Yes.
amendment?
it's still a draft until we,
Okay.
This is the budget line.
Oh, the resolution,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, not the policies that we just did.
I would move the resolution for the 2019-20 budget and policies as amended.
and I'm going to pass the gavel.
Madam President?
I would move that we separate the question and move out the HRCS portion of the budget and vote on that separately.
It's been moved by the president that we pull out the HRCS budget for a separate vote. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Spitzley? Very good. All those in favor of dividing the question for the HRCS budget, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Councilmember Spitzley?
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the budget that pertains to economic development also be separated out.
All right.
And I don't know if
Is it
it's
the
a-
LEAP budget?
Well, I
or
think it would have to be
contract?
LEAP and,
Economic, the
Yeah.
economic development, okay.
yeah.
The LEAP and economic development, are they under, Angie, is the contract under,
Economic Development and Planning.
okay, so we're good. So we have a motion on that. Councilmember Jackson?
I don't know if it's proper time, but I have a conflict.
Okay, let's vote on this one, and then we'll get to yours, okay? All those in favor of separating the budget for the economic development, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Councilmember Jackson?
Thank you. I was advised by the city attorney's office to separate district court voting, so that's 54A. I currently work in the Ingham County Public Defender's Office, and they work directly with the courts.
Okay. We have a motion to separate the district court budget. All those in favor say aye. Aye. So what we're going to first do is we're going to vote on district court. So you're asking to be recused.
I move to be recused.
We have a motion to recuse Councilmember Jackson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Now we will vote on the district court budget.
Madam President, I move the district court budget.
We have a motion on the district court budget. All those in favor of district court say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Our next is economic development. Patricia, Councilmember
you.
Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask to be recused from voting on the economic development budget.
We have a motion to recuse Councilmember Spitzley from voting on the economic development budget. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Vice President Spatafor.
Madam President, I move the budget for the Department of Economic Development and Planning.
We have a motion on the budget. All those for economic development. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? You opposed? Okay. We still have 5. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. And Councilmember Jackson opposes and 1 recusal. I'm passing the gavel.
We need a motion on, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I move to recuse myself from the HRCS budget. The nonprofit that I'm executive director for receives funds through HRCS, a line item.
It's been moved by President Wood to recuse herself from the HRCS budget. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, you are recused. Now we need a motion to approve the HRCS budget. Councilmember Washington.
I move that we approve the HCRS budget.
It's been moved by Councilmember Washington that the council approve the committee approve the HRCS budget. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0 with 5-1 with a recusal.
Thank you. Now we have the balance of the budget with the amendments and our budget policies. All those, yes, I'm sorry, I needed a motion. Vice
Trying to get this done, I understand. Madam President, I move the adoption of the remainder of the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget and policies.
All right, with that, are there any other discussions? Seeing none. All those, Councilmember Jackson, sorry.
Thank you, and I appreciate my council members for their patience and also for their strong advocacy in all of the important spots, including the administration. But for your advocacy, I don't think I could advocate the way I am, but I know that all of those important priorities are going to be represented as they have came to fruition for the most part, but I still can't support the budget since it doesn't include a sustainability manager or doesn't take the mayor's initial Greenwise funds and keeps it green. So I made promises to people, and I know there's a lot of other people out there that feel the same way, so I won't be able to support it.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, that moves us on. Let me see where my agenda is. So with that, next we have the executive order, and by approving the budget, what we have done is also approve the executive order on the reorganization of parking enforcement from the Lansing Police Department to the Economic Development Department. Vice President Spatafor.
I think I'm moving the acceptance of the executive order, transferring the UAW 400 parking enforcement workers from the Lansing Police Department and to the Economic Development and Planning Department as approved in the budget.
Do you have something on the executive order?
Yes, this is not a reorganization under the charter, so it really is not subject to your approval. It's for almost a receipt of it,
Okay.
basically.
Well, then you can move to receive.
I withdraw my motion and instead move to receive the executive order 2019-04.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to receive. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, I think that does it. I think we got through it. All right, we will adjourn for 10 minutes and then start our council meeting at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Hold on for one moment. Yeah, hold on for a minute.